assumption, no corruption, just as advertised.
Who's ready to rally? You know, but I'm gonna just have to take this off. Before we get started, there are just so many folks that I would like to recognize that really helped pull this off. First and foremost, our TFVC staff. We've got Michelle Evans, who will speak later. Let's just hold the applause because there's a lot of them, okay? We have Christine Wellborn, our executive director, Deanne Cox, our data architect, Kelly Vella, our communications liaison, Carrie Bigford, our regional outreach coordinator. There are so many volunteers here today, our outreach coordinators, our videographer, our photographers, our social media. We are just so thankful for you all. Of course, the legislators that you're going to be hearing from today and their staffers, man, they do a lot of work in here for us. The State Preservation Board and Robert Davis is truly a joy to work with and the unsung hero of this building. And of course, the ICANN and complete Highwire team, thank you just is not enough words. That is right. Woo! We are a nonprofit, and so we are supporter fueled, so I appreciate all of our donors that helped make this possible. And of course, all of our speakers that traveled so far away. So thank you so much for being here. Just very briefly, TFVC was started in February of 2015 in response to HB 2006. Who remembers that bill? That's right. That was a bill that now former State Representative Jason Villalba filed in the 84th session that would have removed exemptions for Texas students. A band of parents and legislators worked together diligently to fight off this and 16 other bills that session that would have attempted to mandate vaccines, limit medical liberties, override consent, and increase tracking. And now, just 8 years later, I'm just so proud of our work. You have helped us build the crucial relationships. You have shown up, you have informed, you have testified, you have canvassed, and all of this hard work has paid off. Since launching in 2015, TFVC has stopped every single bill in every single session that would have eroded your rights to informed consent, medical privacy, and vaccine choice. That is right. And I am Rebecca Hardy. I have the distinct privilege of being the president of this organization. I am one of the original 3 founders that started this movement in 2015. And in my early years as a speech language pathologist, I saw so many moms coming into my office seeking services for their children. These moms all had vaguely similar stories of normal development arrested by a shot visit. At the time, I would have called myself a vaccine agnostic. I wasn't a mom. I hadn't had a vaccine myself in probably over a decade. And the issue just simply did not have the religious fervor that it has. Isn't that a way to just broad stroke that religious fervor that it does now? Even with all that against me, I remember thinking, going home at night after a day in my clinic, thinking not all these moms can be wrong, right? And it was those stories that planted the seeds that germinated many years later when I was starting my family that led us to make very different vaccination decisions for our children. And I will always be grateful to those moms that sounded the alarm early on in my life. But enough about me. Today is not about any one person. It is about all of you. We know the tremendous sacrifice that it took to get here today. But if we are going to finally end mandates in Texas, if we're going to take back the ground that COVID tyranny took from us, and if we're going to advance informed consent for all Texans, we have to show up. So thank you for showing up, and with numbers, we can tell the electeds in that building that it is time for Texas to take the lead. That's right. And it is time for our first speaker. Representative Schatzline is a husband, a father of 2, No, actually 3 now. He's a former pastor, the founder of For Liberty and Justice, an organization that is dedicated to mobilizing the local church for reform in government. He serves as a director of the Justice Reform and Anti-Human Trafficking organization. He won hard-fought primary and general elections and is now ready to fight for us. We are honored by his support and invite him up to lead us in our invocation and moment of silence for the vaccine injured. Representative Schatzline.
How many of you appreciate
You should just hold it.
How many of you appreciate this incredible organization coming out today? Oh, it's so encouraging to see every one of you out here fighting for medical freedom. And I'm going to open in prayer. Is that right? Awesome. I was having a hard time hearing back here, but yes, awesome. Let's open in prayer. I just encourage you to pray with us, to participate in this. I believe that we need God's hand on this more than ever before. So, Father, we just pray right now, God, that you are going to not just guide today, but I pray that you're going to guide the decisions of our legislators to promote freedom in the state of Texas so that we can lead the way when it comes to medical freedom. Lord, we just thank you for your divine provision, for your hand of stepping in and protecting those who are at risk right now. And God, I just pray right now for common sense legislation to be passed in the 88th session. Father, that we can work in unity to fight against these tyrannical mandates with an experimental drug. And God, I pray right now that we would be able to take a stand, give us courage. And I thank you for every single one of these incredible activists that came out today to take a stand for what matters most, and that is our medical freedom. In the name of Jesus, I pray. And everyone said, amen. Amen. Yes. At this time, we're going to take a moment of silence for the vaccine injured, for those of you who may have family members, for those of you who may just know someone, coworkers. So let's take that moment of silence now. Thank you so much. Let's fight for some medical freedom.
Thank you, Representative Schatzline. And now it is my distinct honor to introduce our next speaker. She was one of the original founders of TFVC. She's also fresh off a hard-fought grassroots campaign for Texas House. And while I would have much rather have her serving as a state rep in this building, I'm beyond grateful that she's back in the trenches with TFVC. She calls those first few years at TFVC her most significant and fulfilling work. That first legislative session in 2015, she spent nearly every day knocking the doors of senators and representatives, testifying in committee hearings, organizing events, and making connections with staffers and elected officials. God has a funny way of making things come full circle. She is back and now serves as our legislative director. Please welcome the fearless Michelle Evans.
Hi guys, thank you so much for everybody coming out today. This is such a pleasure, such an honor to speak to you guys and to be back in this seat. I just want to give you a little bit of a legislative overview for this session. But who here remembers in 2015 when we all fought for vaccine choice before it was actually cool, right? We were considered a fringe minority, the cult of Jenny McCarthy. Fast forward 8 years and one big pandemic, and suddenly vaccine hesitancy is so common that even Dr. Paul Offit is on board with us these days. Yet Texas, once the pace setter for freedom, has failed to prove itself as a leader in response to COVID. States like Florida, South Dakota, even Iowa stayed true to their citizens by protecting small business owners from shutdowns, advocating for kids to remain mask-free, and enforcing bans on mandates. It's beyond time for Texas to take the lead by codifying these protections into law and providing avenues of enforcement. All is not lost, though, because of the draconian overreach of COVID, there's been an upswell in awareness. Support for our little organization that could has grown exponentially from the grassroots to the establishment. And throughout the years, we remain steadfast in our mission to advocate for you and your loved ones. And we're blessed to have so many legislators willing to not only speak up for medical liberty, but walk the talk too. For the first time in TFVC history, we have over 24 bills that we already support, and there are still several weeks until the filing deadline. And I'm excited to say that many of these legislators will be joining us today to indicate their willingness to fight on your behalf. I want these names to be imprinted on your brain because it is up to us to hold them accountable for their promises to protect your medical liberty. It's up to us to ask them to be bold, be proactive, be forward-thinking, and most importantly, be brave. It is up to us to ask them help Texas take the lead. But before I introduce our first legislator, I'd like to share something on behalf of our Attorney General, Ken Paxton, who unfortunately could not be with us today due to a scheduling conflict. He says, "I have long been an advocate for medical liberty, and I'm so grateful for the efforts of Texans for vaccine choice. These last 3 years, my office has tirelessly defended your right to vaccine choice against endless attempts to force Texans to undergo unwanted medical procedures. I'll continue to fight to protect all Texans because it's a worthy battle, but I need you to tell your legislators that medical liberty is fundamental and that it's time for Texas to lead, not follow." And just this morning, on the phone with Agricultural Commissioner Sid Miller, he reiterated to me that he also opposes any kind of government or private mandate and has said he will be investigating the potential use of mRNA jabs on livestock. And he called that potentially sinister. But we're going to introduce our first elected official. Senator Mays Middleton started his legislative career in the Texas House in 2018 and was elected to the Senate in 2022. In 2021, as a House member, he served as the chairman of the Texas Freedom Caucus. And during this session's pre-filing period, Senator Middleton filed Senate Bill 177, also known as the Texas COVID-19 Vaccine Freedom Act, which codifies your right to informed consent and would ban COVID-19 vaccine mandates. Please welcome Senator Mays Middleton.
Thank you, Michelle.
Good to see you.
Man, it is awesome to see so many patriots out here today that stand for our God-granted individual liberties, because that's what this is really about, what this issue is truly about. Because, at the end of the day, no Texan who doesn't want a COVID vaccine should be forced to get one, period, the end. Are we going to let Joe Biden tell us to get the COVID vaccine here? No. So I was proud to file Senate Bill 177, which is a companion to Representative Brian Harrison's bill that bans COVID vaccine mandates in the state of Texas. And this is a really simple issue. It truly is. It's about medical freedom, it's about personal choice, and it's about informed consent as well. And the bill is very, very simple. It just says, look, if you're being coerced to get a COVID vaccine, you cannot grant informed consent. And then there are penalties attached to that. So there's Attorney General injunction and $5,000 in civil penalties for medical providers that are trying to give you a COVID vaccine against your consent. So those are the teeth that we have to have in that piece of legislation. But look, I'll tell you at the end of the day, no one in this state should have to make this choice between their sincerely held beliefs and their ability to feed their family and have their career. And that's the choice that so many Texans have had to make, and that's wrong, and we need to make sure we end that in this state. And we've been through this before. We have nurses here that were fired. We have people in the crowd that were fired because they stuck to their sincerely held beliefs and said, no, I do not want the COVID vaccine. And all of that was to keep us safe. Remember, They're firing medical professionals to help keep us safe. Well, how'd that work out? Not very well at all. So that's why this bill is so important to get done, and I'm looking forward to the fight to make sure that we see this into law this next legislative session, to stand up for your medical freedom, for your choices, to make sure that your job is never threatened over your sincerely held beliefs, and we protect your medical rights. So God bless you, and God bless Texas.
Okay. We're really lucky because we're top heavy today, and all the legislators are here and they really would like to speak, so I'm going to introduce them one by one. First, I want to introduce Mark D'Orazio. He is a newly elected member of the House and has committed to fighting for your medical liberty and against vaccine mandates. So I just wanted to recognize him and wish him the best of luck this session. Thank you.
This is a short speech.
Yes. Oh,
Thank you. No,
yeah.
I'm good.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Okay. So there's been no better friend to TFVC over the years than Senator Bob Hall. Particularly since COVID crept on the scene in Texas, Senator Hall has been on the front lines advocating for alternative treatments, battling against the medical and pharmaceutical establishment, and exposing corruption. So far this session, Senator Hall has introduced over a dozen bills that TFVC supports and more that we are actively watching. Please welcome Senator Bob Hall.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for being here. You know, there's been a slogan that's been used out there for a long time that's misused. I think we need to adopt it. My body, my choice. It is appropriate. No mandates. It is our body. It is our God-given right to make our choices. It is part of what our founding fathers thought when they created our country. Of the people, by the people, and for the people, whose government's purpose was to protect individual liberty, not to be providing free stuff or issuing mandates, to protect our liberties. And that's what you're doing here today, and I want to thank you. I thank each of you for being part of it, because we truly are supposed to be a government of the people. And the way you participate is doing exactly what you're doing today, making people aware of how you feel. So don't back up, don't back down on this. Stand up, stand strong, stand on what you believe, because no mandates should be allowed. I had bills, we got some really good bills this time, and I think the message is out there that people understand it, and we're going to fight for it, fight for individual rights. And I welcome you in the office, and I encourage you to continue to talk with your legislators to make sure they know how you feel on this, and we will win out in the end. So God bless you, and God bless Texas.
Thank you, Senator. At the end of the third special session in 2021, Brian Harrison was a fresh off a special election new member to the Texas House, yet he wasted no time in filing the Texas COVID-19 Vaccine Freedom Act in his first week as an elected official. Oh, my hair. And one of his first moves in this session was to file that same bill again. In fact, he has introduced more pro-medical liberty legislation so far this session than any other member of the Texas House. I'm excited for him to share with you his unique experience and perspective. Representative Brian Harrison.
Thank you so much. Howdy! My goodness. I just need to start off by saying thank you so much for being here today. There's so many other things you could do on a beautiful afternoon than come here to your state's capital. But let me tell you why it's so important that you're here. Something I think you're going to agree with. I do not believe you can have freedom without medical freedom. And if we don't do everything we can in the great state of Texas to protect freedom, who else will? And I'll tell you, as somebody who was part of the Trump administration and the Chief of Staff of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, I have been really disgusted to watch Joe Biden's administration pervert and distort Operation Warp Speed from a program that was meant to save lives and turn it into a program to destroy liberty through these tyrannical COVID vaccine mandates. But you know, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, including some here in this building, that would rather maybe y'all not be here today. There's a lot of people that believe, you know what, COVID's in the rearview mirror, let's just let this go on. Let's pretend it didn't happen. Ladies and gentlemen, if we here in Texas can stand by and let not just government, but unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. force needles into the arms of freedom-loving Texans against their wishes, we might as well give up on the Constitution, the 10th Amendment, federalism, informed consent, individual liberty, individual autonomy, and medical freedom altogether. Are you going to let that happen? Well, I'm committed, along with my colleagues that you're hearing from today, to also not letting that happen. It is critically important that this session we do what the governor has called on us and comprehensively, through the legislature, pass a law to once and for all comprehensively ban every COVID-19 vaccine mandate in the state of Texas. And then you know what? We should not stop there, because medical freedom is not just limited to COVID vaccine mandates. I believe that the state of Texas should be the leading state of all the 50 states in protecting every dimension of medical freedom. And that's why I have filed a bill to make sure that never again would state health department here in Texas blindly defer to the unelected bureaucrats in the CDC. And then here's something you might not know. I was surprised to learn this. In the state of Texas right now, it is completely legal for one unelected state bureaucrat to just by an edict, sign a piece of paper, and force any vaccine they want on to every single student in the state of Texas before they can go to school. We need to repeal that immediately. I want to make sure that individual Texans stay in charge of their lives. Freedom and liberty are worth fighting for. They're worth protecting. Thank you for being here. Do not slow down. Let this just be the start of the energy that you bring to us here in the 88th legislative session, and make sure that every single person who is elected to any office in the state of Texas knows you're here, knows you're not going anywhere until we finally, once and for all, ban every COVID vaccine mandate in Texas. Thank you for being here. God bless Texas.
All right, you're all fired up yet? Okay. I want to take a moment to thank some supporting organizations, some allies that we have in the crowd. We've got True Texas Project. Thank you so much. CCDF. Where are the CCDF people? All right. I see Jonathan from Texas Values, and I see Bethany from Young Americans for Liberty. Thank you guys so much for being here today. Okay. Elected in 2020 after persistently running to oust an incumbent who was no friend to vaccine choice, Representative Brian Slayton has been a champion for the grassroots in Texas. He has weathered pressure from his colleagues to stand down and stay quiet, and vows to continue to lead with his faith and the values that Texans hold dear, basics like individual liberty and freedom. If you have a representative who won't listen to you on the issue of medical liberty, you're more than welcome to adopt him as your rep. Brian Slayton.
Thank you all for having me here today. I'm glad to see that I don't see anybody double masked, so I'm really proud of y'all. And you know, we have to protect every Texan to where you can make your own medical decisions for your family, for yourself. And you know, I can't really think of many things the government does well. So why in the world would we want them to make decisions for our medical, for our health, for our well-being? Stay out of it. And we have to stand up for ourselves. We have to stand up for future generations. You know, the lack of action that we had to protect Texans from this has caused a lot of problems. We now got more fires to put out. Now we got people concerned if they ever need to get a blood transfusion. Are they going to get vaccinated blood, right? We have a lot of work to do, and I'm so thankful that every one of you are here. I can tell you, I'm in the fight with you. I know who my friends are, and it's y'all. And I'm so proud, like I say, that you're here. I'm proud that you're here to stand up for not just yourself and your family, but your neighbors. Because this is a battle we are going to have to fight for a while. And then guess what? There'll probably be something else pop up, and we need to make sure that the decisions we're making today can protect us from overreach from the federal government in the future. And so that's a part of leaving your legacy to your kids and grandkids. So thank you all for being here, and I am in the fight with you, and y'all have a blessed day.
Representative Cody Vasut could not be here, but he just sent me a note that he would like me to read on his behalf. He says he appreciates your hard work to promote medical liberty. No one should have to get a jab for a job, a COVID-19 vaccine vaccine for the classroom, or any medical procedure without informed consent. Texans have asked us to deliver on medical freedom this session, and as far as it depends on him, he will do so. Okay. I'm particularly proud to introduce Representative Tony Tenderholt. In 2015, he was one of only about 10 legislators who were unapologetic in their support for Texans for vaccine choice, and he has maintained that support throughout his tenure in the Texas House. This session, he has recommitted himself to being a voice for the grassroots, standing up for those who care more about political expediency than good governance. Please welcome Tony Tenderholt.
Thank you. No jabs for jobs. I like that sign over there. Welcome to your Texas Capitol. If anyone tells you different, they're wrong. This is your house, not mine. And you know, all the legislators standing up here talking to you today, we know our place. You're here listening to me, but in actuality, all the legislators here are listening to you because you want us to protect your choice. It's our duty to protect you and your liberty-loving families and protect you from doing things that are unethical and wrong. And it's pretty simple, right? How can a government force an individual to put a needle in their arm and put something that is not tested into their body, and then on top of it, not allow businesses to open and for you to work? What do you think of that? So I will tell you that you're in the right place right now. You're doing the right thing. And what I would encourage you to do is keep doing this, but get 3, 8, 10, 12, 15 of your neighbors, family, and friends to come and participate. Because even if they don't believe what you do in regards to this COVID vaccine, they should support freedom and liberty and choice. This is similar to other things that we're doing in the state. Who knows better what you and your family need? Who knows better than you? The answer is definitely not us and the government. That's the wrong answer. It's you, the individuals, the Texans, the liberty-loving. You deserve it. You were born with inalienable rights, and last time I checked, inalienable or God-given rights. Our job is not to grant or take away your right. Our job is to protect those God-given rights, and that's what I pledge to keep doing all session long. Thank you for being here.
Flank the podium. Okay. Great. All right, look pretty. I was talking to Brian. Oh, that's not true. All right. One last round of applause for all these brave guys, please.
it's actually, okay, Christine, you're
Okay. All right, that was awesome. Look at all those wonderful legislators. All right. Now we're going to introduce some heroes. But first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Christine Wellborn, and I'm the Executive Director of Texans for Vaccine Choice right now. I actually got into this in 2017 when I was working in election integrity, and I met Rebecca Hardy over there. And we were practicing our elevator speeches, which is where, you've got to be able to give your pitch in the time it takes to be in an elevator. So she pulls out the schedule for the vaccines, and she shows me that and starts telling me, and after I picked my chin up off the ground, I was like, I need to know more about this. I had no idea how many vaccines they are giving children these days. So I got more involved, and I started volunteering, and then they asked me to be on an advisory board, and then the board, and now here I am as executive director. So, yes, thank you. So all that to say that, y'all get involved, start volunteering somewhere, and you could end up on a stage like this one day. So it's just really important to get involved. And so as I said, we are now going to be talking about some wonderful heroes. And the first one I'm going to talk about is Dr. Gamboa. Our next speaker is a single mom of two, a Baylor College of Medicine graduate, and an owner of her own clinic in Farmersville that never closed during the pandemic. As a family practitioner, her experiences as a medical provider in a small town during COVID and lockdowns are enlightening, to say the least. We are excited to welcome this hero of the oppressed and downtrodden, Dr. Daniel Gamboa.
Thank you. So I'm supposed to tell you tales from the trenches. So back in March of 2020, when the shutdown was imminent, I spent the weekend before and many weekends reading about COVID. From the international literature, I searched the internet looking for papers about it, and there was a lot of information coming from Europe that had just gone through a wave of COVID. And so what the literature said was that there was a 98 or more survival rate, that there were specific risk factors for those that would predict who would do poorly with the infection, and that 50% of all people would never even catch COVID. Now, I don't know if that statistic held, but that was the literature in March of 2020. So when my staff came to me at the clinic and said, "Are we going to close the clinic?" I told them, "We can't close. We're the doctor. And there's other diseases besides COVID. We can't leave our patients." And so, so then, and I'm just going to say, I think these are the bravest people in the world, and I am just overwhelmed with gratefulness that they trusted me, because it was me, my word against the media, and it's remarkable that they 100% showed up for work. And so then they said, "Are we going to see people in the parking lot?" And I looked at them, because, it's Texas, and it's going to get really hot. And I said, "Do you want to see people in the parking lot?" And everybody said no. And so we didn't. COVID did not erase privacy laws. I don't even know, how do you see a patient in the parking lot? What about HIPAA? COVID did not erase the need for a good physical exam, and that cannot be done in a parking lot. And COVID did not erase the importance of the human connection of the doctor or provider with the patient. And on this, I really have issue with some of my colleagues, that human touch that we learned during medical school and residency was ignored, and that cannot be erased. So we stayed open, and the local pharmacist came over to tell me that we risked being shut down by the health department and the police, because if we let people in, we might spread COVID. So, not strep, not any of the other things that we've been seeing for 15 years, just COVID. So I wrote protocols. I wrote lots of protocols. I spent the beginning of 2020 writing protocols to keep my clinic safe from the government and to keep the patients safe also from getting infections. So we started off not seeing COVID patients, but as a few weeks went on, I realized we had to see these patients. They needed to be treated early, and they needed to be treated by local doctors like me. So again, I got on the internet, and I searched for treatments. And what I need to tell you is that the censorship of doctors like Dr. McCullough and Dr. Merritt and so many others led to the deaths of many Texans and many Americans because doctors like me, I couldn't get the information fast enough. I had friends and family members, they would do screenshots and send me information. They sent me links that I couldn't even watch fast enough before they were gone from the internet. And everybody, it was really a desperate time, and the censorship was really fatal for some people. And so, so I will tell you, I will also send a shout out to Senator Bob Hall. Those town hall meetings on Facebook, they were not only super valuable information, but they protected doctors like me who stayed open and who were prescribing novel treatments like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. And they protected me from the medical board and also from, from undue criticism. You see, I trained during the AIDS epidemic. I went to medical school from 91 to 95, where we used medicines and treatments that were not 100% approved by the entirety of the medical field because there wasn't time. People were dying, and this was the same situation. So I'm once again shocked by the criticism of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. So I wanted to tell you two main points from a doctor who's been in the trenches in a small town. So these are all from my perspective. The reason why healthcare workers did not want the COVID shot, it was not because of political reasons. It was because, one, the shots rolled out to the elderly and people saw the side effects. I personally saw patients who had, I didn't see them, the shots weren't given in medical offices, but we saw the hospital reports. They had seizures, malignant hypertension, and heart palpitations. All of this drove them to the ER, and there was no reimbursement for those bills. If they had gotten a shot and did not have proper insurance, they paid those bills. We also saw the after effects of ringing in the ears and kind of weird neurological, my arm feels heavy, my fingers are numb, and so no, we didn't want the shots because we didn't like those side effects. We didn't agree with them. And then the second reason was it was a coronavirus. So when I read in the initial reports that 50% of people wouldn't get it, how many coronaviruses do you think I've been exposed to in 30 years of practice? Also, I was a doctor during SARS-1, during 2002 to 2004. So some of us felt we had natural immunity. And by the time the shots rolled out, speaking of that, by the time the shots rolled out for healthcare providers, many of us had already caught it. And so I actually ended up being one of those people who never caught it. And I think it's because I had SARS-1. How am I going to recall the bad flu, 20 years ago? But I think that was it. But many of my staff had already caught it, and we knew natural immunity would protect us. Furthermore, due to the failed SARS vaccine, not COVID, but SARS-1 vaccine, which was never talked about in the press, this vaccine rolled out. It was recalled universally across the United States. We had 2 patients that received it. We had an 800 number that was supposed to give those patients information. We were supposed to get a box to send any shots back. All of that dried up. The patients never got information. We never got any feedback from those failed shots. We have no idea the repercussions of the Obama shots. And so, therefore, we did not want the new shot. And the final, the other reason is my family has my son is severely vaccine injured. We just don't have the genetics for the brand new shot of the year. And that should have been forgiven right from the start. There are families that just don't have the genetics for any new creation that comes out of the lab. And we were one of them. And then finally, the shot didn't work. It was, now it's a very small scale. This is all from my perspective. I have not read large studies. I'm not going to argue with, people from Harvard. But every patient that went to the hospital unvaccinated, we had a patient go to the hospital who was vaccinated. Unfortunately, the same was with the people passed away. And we kind of kept track of those little statistics in my tiny clinic. And so those were the real reasons why the medical community remained unvaccinated. And then the last point, from someone who's still in the trenches, the disease of COVID, the pulmonary edema, the need for pulse oximeters in the home, the unusual and particularly lethal clotting, never seen before by me in the clinic. I wasn't taught about a disease like this at all. This was completely new. It's been gone since last winter. I'm not saying COVID doesn't exist. I'm saying if we didn't have any testing, that disease that we struggled with, that we helped patients with, that we fought, it's been gone for a year. And so let me add my voice to so many other doctors. It's time to stop the shot.
We are honored to have another member of the legislature join us. Real quick, I want to say hello to Travis Griffin, who is the Chief of Staff for Representative Cecil Bell Jr., who on the first day of session saw me in the hallway and voiced his support for ending mandates in Texas, so thank you. As the chairwoman of the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services, Senator Lois Kolkhorst has been courageous in elevating the voices of heroes like Drs. Malone and McCullough and critical of the federal and state responses to COVID-19. She passed legislation in 2021 to ban vaccine passports in Texas, and just yesterday spoke of her commitment to restoring trust in our public health agencies by being driven by data instead of fear. We are fortunate as a state that she will continue as chairwoman of the Health and Human Services Committee this session. Please welcome Senator Lois Kolkhorst.
Thank you so much, and I want to say thank you to all of you who have shown up today to have your voices heard. That is the most important thing. It is not the government, it is our government. It is your government. And so that is what we are about. We are about a constitutional republic where we can gather and have our voices heard. And let me tell you something. Talking to these doctors, all doctors that served during the COVID pandemic and their bravery, one of the things that we have to focus on is medical freedom. Letting doctors practice medicine and do what they think is best for their patients. And not to be censored. In Texas, we have a law that lets you use off-label use of prescriptive drugs. Why were our doctors censored for that? Why were they, we know what was happening on Twitter now. And so I really want to work with y'all on medical freedom and restoring the abilities of our doctors to make decisions for us in concert with us and doing what's best for our own health care. And we do not need mandates. That is a decision between you and your doctor and God, okay? That is just how it is. And let me say that. We don't mandate the influenza shot. I just don't know what the rush was to mandate the COVID-19 shot. That, again, went through warp speed. It was out there, and I respect, if you want to take that shot, I respect that. But that should be your decision and not the government making you do that or not your employer making you do that. And so the other thing that I want to talk about is data-driven decisions. I don't know why there's such a fear to say, okay, let's look at why myocarditis is on the rise, especially in our young people and our young adults. Why can't we just look at that and gather the facts? Our VAERS systems, we need to have active reporting on reactions to vaccines. We've got to have that, especially the COVID-19, the mRNA, which is new and new introduced. We know that. And so I want data to drive our decisions in the Texas legislature. I'm honored to serve as the chair of Health and Human Services. I am so honored that Dr. Malone and Dr. McCullough, the first legislative committee that they ever appeared before in the United States was ours. So Texas leads. Texas leads this nation. And we lead because of people like you that are vocal in their government. So don't stand down. Let your voices be heard. Let's move forward. Let's understand that there were mistakes made during 2020 and 2021. Let's recover from that so that we can set history on a correct path and never repeat those mistakes again. God bless you, and may God bless the great state of Texas.
Wow! Thank you so much, Chairwoman Kolkhorst. Thank you. Whew. Okay, our next speaker is a chiropractor and medical researcher who has treated over 10,000 patients from around the world. He is known for sharing his research on ongoing medical protocols for COVID. You will see him hanging out with the likes of Mike Adams, Dr. Tim Penny, and Judy Makovitz. Please welcome Dr. Brian Ardis.
Thank you. Howdy, y'all. I cannot even believe that I'm standing here and going to say we have to put faith in politicians. But I have loved everything these guys have stood for, what they've said just now, and we should applaud them for what they've done on behalf of all of Texans and parents. I applaud you. I support you. Senator Bob Hall, you're the greatest of them all, in my opinion. Now, I have a message for all of them that just spoke. We're going to hold you accountable. And if y'all won't, I will. All right, so we expect them to preserve our freedoms. What was this country founded on? Freedoms. You've heard them speak on that, right? Freedoms, liberties, and the pursuit of happiness. Raise your hand if you believe this country, this state, was preserved and gifted to us by God himself. How many of you agree, like I do, if you want to just know my opinion, that the greatest gift God ever gave us was the freedom to choose, free agency? Do y'all agree? Anybody in this country or in this world who deprives you of your right to make a choice is anti-God, in my opinion. And why would we put faith in them to preserve the rights and freedoms God granted us when this country was founded? To me, it's horrific. I have, for 22 years, been a parent of 5 children. For 21 years, none of them have been vaccinated. And it didn't matter what church organization, what pastor, minister, school district, what a health department said. It didn't matter what a medical doctor or pediatrician said to me. It was my choice, after my own research, to not vaccinate any of them. And every single one have been in public schools. Every year I provide the documentation. Even every school would look at me and go, "Where'd you get this? I've never seen this before." And every time I fought to preserve their rights to not have some damn injection put inside of them. Now, I'm going to ask a question. This is not new for me, but I have to give some credit to some people who inspired me 21 years ago. Fisher, Tenpenny, Polly Tommy, Andy Wakefield. We stand following their lead. Thank God for them, because they inspired me to go do the research on my own for my own kids when my medical professionals wouldn't give it to me. How many of you believe God created you? How many profess to believe that God is all-knowing and all-powerful? Now raise your hands if you think he screwed up on the day 6 he created you. Because from the moment you were born in this country, men and women are looking at you as your perfect created baby comes out of the womb and says, "It's defective. You need to inject them with a hepatitis B vaccine that we created in a lab." If you truly believe that God is all-knowing and all-powerful and that he got it right the first time when he created you, stop subjecting yourself to men and women who are fallible, who tell you his creation is tainted. You have to inject it with our drug to make it work correctly. God never screwed up, ever. And if you profess to believe he's all-knowing and all-powerful, prove it. Prove it from here on out when you look at your children who have children and you look at them and say, you should get your children vaccinated. That's what my parents said to me 22 years ago, that I was a horrible parent for not vaccinating my kids. Why? They fell for the indoctrination and the great lie. This has never been about the COVID-19 vaccine for me. It was obvious what they were going to do when they unleashed COVID-19's fear-mongering around the world. It was to get you to volunteer yourself to inject them with an experiment. It always has been that way. They're flat out lying to you. This doesn't apply to vaccines alone. Do you know how many patients have been in and out of my offices who have told me their medical professional told them, you need to take this statin drug, and if you don't, I will fire you from this practice? That is coercion and bullying. You have every right to choose whatever goes into your body in the way of food, in the way of vaccines, in the way of drugs, in the way of supplements. It is your right to defend your life and your liberty. How are you going to live with freedom of happiness in the pursuit of happiness when you're ill and injured? Hold the government accountable and then plead, get on your knees, put your faith in God and the natural immunity he gave you, because it works. I'm Dr. Artis. I'm here to protect you, here to educate you and warn you and inspire you. We love you, and thank God for this group and Rebecca Hardy. Of the 22 years I have not vaccinated my kids, I've only been here for 13 of those years. Thank God that groups like this have provided for me and my family the opportunity to go on a website, texas.gov, type in vaccine exemption, get a card stock in the mail, just sign it, go get it notarized, and turn it in. How much easier could it be? These people are defending your rights for your children to live a disease-free, symptom-free life. God, thank you for you. And now hold them all accountable. I'm Dr. Artis. We love you.
Oh, thank you. That was amazing. All right. So next we have Laura Cox. Next speaker is a 33-year veteran pilot for United Airlines and has been a 737 captain for the last 20 years. She is one of the founders of Airline Employees for Health Freedom, an organization that believes it is your right to request a reasonable accommodation in lieu of forced vaccinations to maintain your bodily autonomy. Radical concept, right? Please welcome Captain Laura Cox.
Just want to thank everyone for being here today. It's your right to just defend your freedoms. Just tell you a little bit about our story and our fight. On August 6, 2021, our CEO, Scott Kirby, mandated the COVID-19 vaccine for all United Airlines employees. His goal was to create the first 100% vaccinated airline. He tried to pass it off as safety. But in our fight in the courts, in the federal court, Judge Mark Pittman called his claim pretextual. In other words, it's a false claim of safety. There is no safety with the COVID-19 vaccine. There's no guaranteed safety with any vaccine. On September 28th, United placed over 350 of its pilots, 700 of its flight attendants on unpaid leave for an indefinite period of time. Scott Kirby had also threatened to put gate agents, rampers, mechanics, and even management personnel who refused the vaccine on unpaid leave. But instead, because of our fight in court, because of our request for preliminary injunction, Instead, he forced them to wear an N95 respirator without the proper OSHA safeguards and to get tested twice a week. They could not eat in the break rooms. They had to go outside to eat or find a closet, and we even have reports of some of them eating in the bathroom, eating their lunch in the bathroom. Can you imagine? That it is. United employees, many of us got together. We figured out what the laws were under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act in 1964 and the Americans with Disabilities Act, that we were entitled to a reasonable accommodation. And we began to put our requests in. But United did not respond to our request for many weeks. And when they did, we were told it was going to be unpaid indefinite leave for a reasonable accommodation. Many of our fellow employees could not take the pressure. They succumbed to the coercion and took the vaccine. They violated their faith and their medical autonomy. Others are fighting termination because of problems with submitting their reasonable accommodation or missing artificial deadlines. What if you found God after September 1st of 2021? United said you couldn't apply for a reasonable accommodation. What if you suffered a medical event after that date and you could no longer take the COVID-19 vaccine according to your doctor? It didn't matter. Unable to sit by, myself, Captain Sherry Walker, joined with Danielle Runyon, an attorney and one of our captain's spouses, to lead the resistance, to lead the fight for medical freedom and choice. We incorporated Airline Employees for Health Freedom, a 5014C organization, and we engaged one of the top religious liberty firms in the nation, Cher Jaffe. We are fighting in federal court against unreasonable accommodation of unpaid indefinite leave and unreasonable accommodations like N95 respirators for anyone who submitted a reasonable accommodation at United Airlines. And although our preliminary injunction request was denied in the federal court initially, we appealed that ruling in the Fifth Circuit, and on February 17, 2022, in a 2-to-1 decision, the appellate court ruled that we had indeed suffered irreparable harm by being forced into this choice, and remanded the case back to Judge Pittman in Fort Worth. Just a few short weeks later, United Airlines announced that they were going to bring all of us back to work. Amazing. Then United, after they did that, they asked the courts to vacate the ruling of irreparable harm because now it's moot. They brought us back to work. But it's not. The harm has been done. The harm has been done, and it has not stopped. It took a while, but in August of 2022, the Fifth Circuit denied United's motion to vacate. And I would like to read you some of Judge Ho's commentary in support of our case. This is published legal opinion. Imagine that your employer suddenly declares that he finds one of your religious beliefs offensive. It could be your view on abortion or marriage or sexuality or gender or any number of other religious tenets. Your view has no economic impact whatsoever on the company, but it offends the sensibilities of the executives who populate the C-suite. So the company puts you on unpaid leave for an indefinite period of time, and the only way you can reclaim your job is to abandon your religious convictions and do so irreversibly. Imagine further that you love your God and you also love your family, who counts on you and your livelihood to survive. Finally, imagine that if you can't get preliminary injunctive relief, you'll have no choice but to sacrifice your faith in order to avoid sacrificing your family. Now ask yourself this question: what measure of damages would make you whole? Or put another way, for how much would you sell your soul? If the very thought of this question vexes or offends you, you're not alone. For millions of Americans, you'd be hard-pressed to come up with a more obvious and compelling example of incalculable, irreparable injury. He later goes on to say, historically, corporations typically focus on increasing shareholder value, not imposing certain cultural values on others. but that is rapidly changing. I began by imagining a hypothetical employer who doesn't care how productive an employee you might be. He insists that you abandon certain religious beliefs he finds offensive, whether it's abortion, marriage, sexuality, gender, or something else. It's a little windy up here. I got it. But here's the thing. What was once hypothetical is now rapidly becoming reality. Examples of this abound. Judge Ho goes on to quote Vivek Ramaswamy of Woke Incorporated, an article titled Inside the Corporate America's Social Justice Scam. As he explained, America was founded on the idea that we make our most important value judgments through our democratic process, where each citizen's voice is weighed equally, rather than by a small group of elites in private, like our corporate CEOs. Debates about our social values belong in the civic sphere, not in the corner offices of corporate America. There's a difference between speaking up as a citizen and using your company's market power to voice your views onto society while avoiding the rigors of public debate in our democracy. When companies use their market power to make moral rules, they effectively prevent other citizens from having the same say in our democracy. In sum, it's the Goldman rule in action. The guys with the gold get to make the rules. Not surprisingly, many Americans bemoan the impact that this new form of capitalism is starting to have on our nation's culture. I think those are some of the most profound words out of that opinion that Judge Ho wrote. And just, it really spoke to me when I read them, and it defined the harm that myself and my fellow employees and anybody who has been forced to take the vaccine at their work or lost their job as a result of it. I've come to conclude that one of the biggest problems is an absence of law in this area. While there's no law that says an employer can mandate the vaccine, there's no law that says they can't. And that's what we're here today to start, making laws that says that they can't force us to take a medical procedure. Airline Employees for Health Freedom speaks with a strong voice, working to put our issues, religious and medical freedom, at the forefront of state and national legislatures. Our goal is to use grassroots efforts to inform lawmakers with facts and expert testimony. Last year, we had some legislative efforts that were very successful. One of our members was elected to the Colorado State House just this last election. We met with Governor Greg Abbott, Representative Steve Toth, Senator Bob Hall, and others here at the Texas Legislature. In the U.S. Congress, Senators Ted Cruz, Marsha Blackburn, and Rick Scott all grilled CEO Scott Kirby regarding his actions on the COVID-19 mandates during the Senate Commerce Committee hearings in December of 2021. Senators Ron Johnson, Roger Marshall, and many others have taken time to listen to our plight and offer assistance. Now is a time for all of us to learn how to fight smart at the state and national level. We need each and every one of you, all of you, to join us in this fight. As has been said before, you need to talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends. Even if they chose to take the vaccine, which was their choice, we deserve the right not to take the vaccine, to choose not to take a medical procedure that we feel either violates our faith or will harm our health. No employer, school, or government should ever have the right to mandate or coerce you into a medical procedure. As Judge Ho said, for how much would you sell your soul? If you'd like to learn more about us, you can go to our website, jabsforjobs.org, and it's jabs, the number 4, jobs.org. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Captain Cox. Our next speakers are part of our honored military. Brandy served honorably as an officer and a pilot in the United States Air Force Reserve for nearly 20 years. She has completed Air War College and was the director of operations at the C5M Formal Training Unit. Following the illegal vaccine mandate, she was terminated by Air Force Reserve Command's deputy commander after voicing her sincerely held beliefs, which precluded her from accepting an emergency usage authorization COVID vaccine. What a concept, right? Also, we have retired Lieutenant Colonel and Dr. Pete Chambers. He joined the Army in 1983 and served for a career spanning 39 years. He's a graduate of the Special Forces Qualification Course, earning the Green Beret Doc has multiple combat tours, deploying in the capacity of Special Operations Flight Surgeon and Green Beret officer conducting missions around the globe. Most recently, he served protecting our borders, but experienced a personal vaccine injury following the COVID vaccine mandate. After understanding the risks firsthand, he began providing informed consent to his troops. Again, what a concept. He also became a whistleblower and provided evidence for a U.S. Senate hearing regarding the illegal vaccine mandate. For doing so, he was threatened with punitive measures, which resulted in his retirement from the service. Please welcome former Lieutenant Colonel Brandy Barnard King and retired Lieutenant Colonel and Dr. Pete Chambers.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm honored to be here and honored to share my story with you today. However, my story is not unique to me. We had probably 80,000 people who did not want to put this vaccine, as they call it, into their body for various reasons. And over time, they were coerced and penalized to where now we have about 10,000 or so, actually probably more like 15,000 that are still refusing to do so. 8,600 of us have been kicked out of the military for not being able or willing to obtain the vaccine. My story, a month after Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin mandated the COVID vaccine, I was asked whether I was ordered to get the vaccine and then asked whether I was going to comply by submitting a medical exemption, a religious accommodation, or obtaining the vaccine. I immediately shared my faith with my superior officer and was immediately told that I would be terminated. That happened within hours. I lost my income, I lost my health care, I lost my position, and I had been a by-name, hand-selected individual to work on a strategy for the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. So it was no small feat that they basically ended my orders and terminated my position. I subsequently filed a religious accommodation and three medical exemption requests because I had 2 certified allergists write letters saying that I was allergic to the ingredients or some of the known ingredients in the serum. And those were denied. I appealed it, denied. Within a few months, I was involuntarily separated from the United States Air Force and put into what's called the Individual Ready Reserve, non-participating. So I have no means by which to gain points towards my retirement after 19 and a half years, a mere 6 months shy from obtaining my pension. And I have no health care. I have none of the benefits that other retirees have. And I am just one of thousands of people and service members that this has happened to. I could not do what they wanted me to do because I knew it was an unlawful order. I knew it violated constitutional law, I knew it violated statutory law, and I knew that it violated Department of Defense instruction and Department of Air Force instruction. I knew it violated, most importantly, it violated God's law. And I was not willing to compromise, not for any amount of money, not for any amount of rank or privilege, or not for a ribbon rack, not for the acknowledgement of the small group of people in the Air Force specifically. I was not going to comply. And I was not going to comply because I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution. I swore an oath. And if they won't let me do it in my military uniform, then I'll do it dressed as a civilian. God bless you all for being here. God bless Texas, and God bless our republic.
And God bless you, Colonel King. Just before I came up here, two things happened. One, we prayed in the back room. Three things happened, actually. Colonel King gave me a Constitution book here, right? We believe in that oath that we took, that we swore to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And for, that's right, give it a hand. Constitution. And for 39 years I did that as an operator, as a young infantry grunt, and a paratrooper, and a Green Beret, and a doc. My last job on this border, just south of us, about 280 miles, 1,248 miles of border, Operation Lone Star, I was the task force surgeon. It was my job to take care of your sons and daughters, 6,000 of them. And this isn't about me. This is about those sons and daughters, because these little ones right here, the reason why we're here, these little ones, God bless them. Well, we cannot quit. Just a little bit further south of here, not 200 miles, but in San Antonio, fellow citizens and compatriots, we are besieged on all sides by tyrannical globalistas who are trying to destroy this right here. We're done with it. We're done. We're not we're not belly aching, and we're not carrying on anymore. What we're doing is we're finding ways to fix this. Doctors like Dr. Artis right here. I followed him from the very beginning when I did my first informed consent brief, and he was talking about it when the shots first came out to my troops, and I was by myself, alone and unafraid, talking to my command, had 2-star generals in my face telling me from the Texas National Guard, unfortunately, telling me, you cannot do informed consent, you must recuse yourself, doctor. I said, sir, that's an unlawful order. And when a lieutenant colonel tells a 2-star that, the lieutenant colonel loses his job. That's what happens. But I didn't lose my job. I took off my uniform and I started a new job in God's army. And that army is the army of truth, because this is all about truth. It's hard. It's actually harder to lie. You got to remember it. The truth is the truth, and it shall set you free. So I want you to know right now, from this building right here, and I've been up on the other building in D.C., and in there, and that National Defense Authorization Act, our freedoms at the state level have been usurped over several NDAAs through several acts, the PrEP Act, the CARE Act, all these other acts that have taken away freedoms from us and usurping it. But under the 10th Amendment and multiple other amendments in this book, we have state sovereignty, and we're going to secure it, right? We're going to act like Texans, just like William Barrett Travis, and I got something I'm kind of proud of. The last unit that I served in the Texas National Guard was in the 3 of the 141. Their first commander was William Barrett Travis, the Alamo. So I'm proud of that. I came in as an infantryman, I left as an infantryman, just a doctor. All right. So I want to thank you for being here today, and I want you to just remember that there are still people out there, even though this is a black hat, there's still those of us that are white hats, right? You hear about the don't trust the plan and all that? We are the plan. We are the white hats. You are the white hats. We the people. Stand strong, stand like Texans, and God bless America and God bless Texas. God Chambers out.
Y'all, it is absolutely despicable that the people who are willing to put themselves on the front lines and fight and die for us are losing their freedoms and have lost their freedoms for their medical liberty and their religious liberty and their ability to choose for themselves. It's absolutely horrible. So our next person is we have, since starting her career in 2004 as a registered nurse, our next speaker has seen many patients struggle in their healthcare journey. She made the decision to provide something beyond what the regular healthcare system that is very reactive and focused on disease management does today. This leaves patients kept in the dark about what is really happening. She has turned these pitfalls of our healthcare system into a passion for patient advocacy and started Grath Care, a network of patient advocates. Please welcome Priscilla Romans.
Hello, Texas. All right, so I usually don't do a lot of speaking, so I'm just going to speak from the heart here. I love watching Dr. Artis. I've watched him for a long time. He actually works with our clients at Grath Care. So you guys are going to need to know me and to need to know my team because of the calls we get every single day for patient advocacy. All over the country and all over globally, they reach out to Graith Care and ask for help because they're afraid. Who here is scared to go to the hospital? Raise of hands. All right, so you need to know Graith Care. So that's Graith. Graith is my two girls' names, Grace and Faith put into one word. The word means to prepare and make ready. And what I'm here to really make sure you guys all know, I'm a nurse. I'm an RN with a BSN. I went and got my master's degree in nursing leadership, and I knew that there was more that the patient in the bed needed to know about their patient rights. And if you don't know your patient rights, you're lost right there. But I want you to know that we have patient advocates that stand up for medical freedom every single day. And you don't have to be scared if you go to the hospital. We get people that call from the emergency room saying, can you get me a patient advocate? I'm scared. I'm afraid they're going to give me remdesivir. I'm afraid that they're going to lie to me. I'm afraid that I have to go get an elective procedure done and they're going to slip in the COVID-19 shot. These are the calls we get every single day. And if you don't know me, you need to know me and my team. You can reach out to a personal advocate. They can know you and they can help you walk through the journey. I'll tell you a story about a nice couple, a family that came to us last week. The gentleman called because he said, my mother-in-law is very sick. My wife is very stressed. She's 95 years old and we don't want her to go to the hospital, but we had to bring her. Now we're in the hospital and we're scared that they're not telling us the truth. We gave them one of our advocates, and she's an ICU background. She knows the system very well. She understands how to talk to the critical care doctors. She understands about informed consent. She understands that not every medication is the right medication at the right time. I want to share what he wrote to me. He said, I want to share a bit of what I heard from my wife about the wonderful help she has received from our advocate, Gail. I'm paraphrasing. It has been great having Gail give us her perspective about what is being done correctly by the hospital staff, as well as providing suggestions on things to ask about and watch for. Not only does it provide an objective perspective regarding the care being received, but it gives the family members peace of mind. When we fight for medical freedom, we should have peace of mind that we are getting all of our options, not half of our options. And that goes all the way down to everybody that is carrying an insurance card in their pocket. Just because you have insurance does not mean that is health care. That is controlled medicine. And if you don't know your rights, you are going to be screwed. So you need to get a patient advocate, you need to understand your rights, and we even have great doctors like Dr. Artis and Dr. Henry Elay. They are doing reviews right at Graith Care when people come and say, I want to know what they think. We do that because we need to think about more options outside of the corrupt system. So I want to throw a couple shirts out before I go. It says, healthcare sucks, get an advocate. Yes, I am done. Healthcare sucks. Get an advocate. Fight for your medical freedom.
Healthcare sucks. That's awesome. Oh, actually, it's you.
Okay. So I want to be clear about something before I introduce this next speaker, and I can speak for myself, and I think everyone up here. None of us sought out to be here on these steps. None of us sought to get involved in this movement. We were faced with evil, and we stood up against it. And that's the thing that all of y'all are doing as well. And we're doing it for ourselves and everyone else too. But no one here is wanting to be famous. You know, they were ordinary people doing ordinary things and living their lives and forced to get up and take a stand. So I'm just so grateful for everyone here. But our next speaker represents Feds for Medical Freedom Dallas-Fort Worth chapter. Feds for Medical Freedom has over 8,000 federal employees and contractors nationwide and focuses on legal efforts to protect medical freedoms and personal autonomy. Current legal efforts resulted in a nationwide injunction that prevented the mass firing of federal employees opposing vaccine mandates for religious or medical reasons. Please welcome Nancy Acevedo.
Hi. A couple of years ago, I was just a normal working woman, paying my bills, trying to build a family, trying to get pregnant, and living life as usual. I rarely joined a protest, take any legislative action, or even voted. I just wasn't interested. I was just taking my medical freedoms and many other freedoms for granted. Then reality kicks in. While I was trying to get pregnant, I realized that there were some entities practically that were trying to create this dystopic scenario that if I don't participate in these experimental procedures, you'll have no job and your life will become so difficult that the only real option you will have is to participate in these experiments that, in my opinion, because of my faith, I find them sinful experiments. Then I realized the mistake of taking medical freedoms for granted and learned that preserving medical freedoms is a fight of many fronts. There are many things that need to be done to preserve the medical freedoms. There's the educational aspect that, because it is more difficult to deceive educated people, and educated people, I mean informed people with critical thinking and common sense. Creating awareness, raising your voice, protests, and legislative efforts. Make your voice count. I see some people here with some signs like no vaccine mandates for healthcare workers, vaccine injuries is real. I see other signs like science, not science, science with the sign of money. These signs make awareness, and some people don't want to hear us, and that's what we need. There's another one that says vaccines don't make you live, yeah, and pull COVID bags. And I've seen so many signs around that people, Texans call the shots. So that's what you need to do. You need to raise awareness around you, speak up. And Feds for Medical Freedoms have some legal actions. There's groups like us that don't let entities who are against medical freedoms and bodily autonomy remove our medical freedoms. So we will not let them go unnoticed, and they will face fierce legal battles. I believe all us together will create a strong support and legacy to preserve our medical freedoms. So please, if you know any employee, federal employee that needs help with their legal actions, please search fedsformedicalfreedom.com. We can help. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Our next speaker is probably someone many of you already know, follow, and support. I've called her the accidental activist because she was just a loving, caring, registered nurse until the mandates came around. She and so many other brave providers stood strong against these mandates and formed Guardians of Medical Choice after filing a lawsuit against Houston Methodist in May of 2021. because of their forced vaccination policy. Ladies and gentlemen, the unstoppable Jennifer Bridges RN.
Hello, Texas. How are we doing? I am just a humble registered nurse who worked the COVID unit, right? Stayed inside Houston Methodist doing everything they asked of us when we knew nothing. When it first came out and they're telling, guess what? At first they even told us, do not wear a mask. You might scare the patient. That just blows your mind now, right? They even had us giving hydroxychloroquine to patients the first month. Then they pulled it back, said, no, never mind, even though it was working. So I saw firsthand all the coercion, the bullying, just everything crazy you could think of, the segregation, calling people out in the hallways in front of everybody. And you're like, wait, we're a hospital. That's kind of a HIPAA violation. But of course, none of that mattered anymore. I even got to speak to the CEO and the CNO of the Baytown Methodist, David Bernard and Becky Chalupa. Before anything started, I said, let's talk about this. We can negotiate, let us wear N95s. We're not comfortable with this. I spoke on behalf of thousands of people. Guess what they told me? They said, your 100% vaccination is more important than y'all's individual autonomy. They said, there's a door. If you don't like what we're doing, you can leave. Don't you think all these other nurses coming up from college would love to have your spot? What was that? Exactly. Houston Methodist is leading tyranny. They have been doing that since day one, the very first in the country to do this, while everybody watched for months, like, how is this going to play out, before everybody else jumped on board. My CEO even looked at me. He said, what makes you think just you as one person can come speak to us like this? And I was like, and now I'm getting mad. We're in this room, we start fighting. I'm like, because I'm speaking on behalf of thousands and thousands of people that do not want this, and you should care. Where's your I care values? I said, what if I took this to the public? What if I went to the other Houston Methodist hospitals? What do you think these people would say? He looked at me like I was going to be scared, and he said, I strongly suggest you against that. Well, obviously that didn't work. And I looked at him and I said, what are you going to do? The worst you can do is fire me, and I'm ready to pack my bag, so give me all you got. And they had this look of disgust. How dare a low-life nurse talk to them like that? End of the meeting, they said, can we tell Mark Boom, the main CEO, that this matter's closed? Oh, hell no. You tell him I need to speak with him immediately, which never happened. That man has refused to talk to me. So then, of course, mandates came out. We were the first ones, June 7th, 2021, our last day. We went out with a bang. I organized a huge protest in front of that hospital. They called the police on us. They were shutting down the parking lot. They didn't know what to do. Hundreds came out on our behalf. It was amazing. They never thought, just like many other companies, that they would get backlash. They're used to bullying, getting their way. Well, it doesn't always work that easily. And then let me tell you, the news media, you might have seen, jumped on board. They love talking to me for some crazy reason. Then we get our lawyer on board. I had so many people offer, hey, I'll write you a medical, religious exemption, whatever you need, don't get fired. I said, no, I'm not playing their games. This is just wrong, and I should be allowed to say no, and nothing else should matter. So to this day, I will never get an exemption. It is against my religious belief, but you know what? That doesn't matter. They should just accept my no, and that's all there is to it. You can't force me to put something in my body against my will. And y'all might have seen, we started off with a lawyer, went to the Federal Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Unfortunately, he didn't do so well, so I kind of had to fire him, but that's okay. I reached out. I got another lawyer right here in Austin named Roger Borgelt. This lawyer is amazing. He is a bulldog. He is working with us so hard, and we are working at the state side now to get to the Texas Supreme Court. So they are dragging this on. They're hoping we stop. They're hoping we'll shut up. But I don't back down easily. And I kind of, once you piss me off, I'm a Scorpio and I'm going to come after you. And we have, and you can follow our journey. You can go to guardiansofmedicalfreedom.com. I'm sorry, guardiansofmedicalchoice.com. I've been listening to everybody else. You can follow our lawsuit. You can buy a t-shirt. You can donate if you feel like it to Give, Send, Go, even $10. Because I've been shut down by GoFundMe. I've been shut down by Square. So I've been threatened. I've been just censored like crazy. But you can always find somebody else that'll help you out. So no matter what you try to do, never stop, never back down, because that's what they're counting on. And like everybody else here has said, talk to your family, your neighbors, your friends. I'm nobody. I'm just a nurse that just got mad seeing everybody bullying and getting treated badly. So you make a little change, you step up, and you never know what's going to happen. Absolutely. And I love seeing everybody out here supporting this. We have some great bills coming into legislation to finally stop the mandates. So I encourage everybody, stay updated with Texans for Vaccine Choice. They are an amazing organization. They were one of the first ones to ever reach out to me and help me when I knew absolutely nothing what I was doing. And they will help you along. They'll tell you when to come down, testify in front of Senate, when to get on the phone and just call legislature. Tell them you want these bills passed. Do whatever you have to do because we need these bills passed. Because if you can't stop this in Texas, where else are you going to stop it at? We need to finally be leading the path, and I encourage everybody, never back down. Keep your voices nice and strong because they don't expect that to happen, and we are growing. The tides are changing, and they did not expect this to happen. So yes, new year, new lawyer, brand new lawsuit. We will never back down. And I will see y'all on this whole journey forward. I'll see y'all somewhere in the future. And God bless Texas, and let's keep this going.
Hello, hello. My name is Angie Lemons, and I am honored to be the Vice President of the Board for Texans for Vaccine Choice, and super honored to be working with these wonderful ladies who are up here on stage with me. First, a big round of applause. Those were some incredible speakers, weren't they? Yes. Thank you all for sharing. We have one more incredible speaker. He is one of the world's preeminent voices of the vaccine risk awareness movement. He's the founder of the nonprofit Informed Consent Action Network and host of the internet talk show The High Wire with over 100 million views. He is also the recipient of multiple awards, including an Emmy Award and the Health Freedom Hero Award. But above all, he is most fulfilled by his work with the brave mothers and fathers of vaccine-injured children who are marching on state capitals like you are today. And his goal is to stop Big Pharma's push to forcibly inject every American citizen with vaccines. Ladies and gentlemen, the man you've been waiting for, Del Bigtree.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out today. First of all, isn't it amazing for those of you that have been here for a while to see, a dozen politicians all coming out to talk to you finally, not treating you like redheaded stepchildren, but realizing, oh my God, I better get out there. There's a voting block standing out in front of the Capitol. So it's a huge shift, and to hear them talk about all the work they've done, to stop the COVID mandates and, to free up, Texas. And we had it pretty good here, I have to say. When I was traveling the country while COVID was going on, and really, unless you walked into a Whole Foods, it felt pretty good here in Texas, which is really weird unto itself. I made a decision, as I think many have, to move to Texas back in 2019. Early in 2019, I actually came to this Capitol and was giving a speech that got me into a lot of trouble, actually, because on that day they had locked down all of the Hasidic Jewish community in Rockland County, New York. something that we never thought would happen in the United States of America, because supposedly there was a measles outbreak, the deadly measles that literally was killing 1 in 500,000 in America before we got that great vaccine. And they weren't allowed to walk the streets. They weren't allowed to go to their synagogues, and it was Passover. And so for the first time ever, and I'm not one to just go ahead and throw around the Holocaust loosely, but I said, as I held up a yellow star, to all the Hasidic Jewish community in Rockland County, New York, that can't go over to Passover now because you're standing in your faith and what you believe in God. And as Brian Artis so brilliantly put, you are created in the image and likeness of God. For holding that belief, they were under curfew in the United States of America. And I said to all of you that never thought that would happen in America, I stand with you. And I pinned that star to my jacket. Tomorrow on the High Wire, I'll be interviewing Vera Sharav, a Holocaust survivor, and they're even attacking her for making the comparison. Can you imagine? And then the day after, on Friday, is our time to remember the Holocaust, the official date where we're supposed to be thinking about it. And so I want to talk about a few things. First of all, when I was giving that speech, it was actually a shout from someone I knew who said, we should get Dell to move to Texas. And at the moment, my house had burned down in California. I was actually looking for a place to live with my beautiful wife, Lee, and our 2 kids. And I thought, yeah, Texas. I'd been here most of the time I was making Vaxxed. And I decided to come here. And I'll tell you why I had to leave California personally, because I was traveling all over the country, literally every single week, speaking at state capitals. And I was getting calls from people in California saying, I'm in a hospital. My son or my daughter was injured lightly, broken arm or a leg, and they're not letting me leave unless I give them a DTaP or Tdap vaccine. And once I started pushing back, they were calling Child Protective Services, and I'm really worried they're going to take my child from me. So for everyone that did get up here and speak and said, the tyranny started and it's oppressing us, I have to tell you this has been going a lot longer than COVID. In fact, when I was here in 2019 giving that speech was not, we need to end the COVID vaccine mandate. And in fact, this sign still doesn't say, Texans for COVID vaccine choice. Okay? We have to be clear what's happening here. Those of us, like Texans for Vaccine Choice, could have avoided this atrocity had enough people been listening. This is what this has always been about, the total oppression of our freedom in the United States of America through medical tyranny that has lasted for a very long time. Too long, in fact. And if we want, we can keep doing this. I suppose right now, let me just jump the gun and say, I'm here to speak against the Marburg vaccine mandate or the Ebola vaccine mandate, because they will never stop with this insanity as long as they have power over our bodies. So when we look and we think about coming to this Capitol, I want to thank all of you for coming today. And I hope you keep coming back. I hope you call every single politician you know, and you go and visit those that are representing you. But use this COVID vaccine disaster simply as an example of what goes wrong when American citizens forget about their constitutional protections of their God-given rights. This vaccine program is an insidious poison, as dark as anything that took down the free people of Germany. They used medicine too. They used medical tyranny and medical rights and nurses and doctors that people trusted to destroy the lives of human beings. Unfortunately, it's doctors and nurses that go along with it, that allow those things to happen. Now, when we speak inside of this Capitol this year, I'm not going to be happy that we got rid of a COVID vaccine mandate. Good for you. How about the rest of it? How about all the children? How about, you want to talk about losing your job? How about the thousands and tens of thousands and millions across the world that can't go to work because they're taking care of a child that is not allowed out in public, can't go out in public, can't go to school, isn't allowed to be anywhere near a police officer because God knows. For all of you still dealing with it, please raise your hand right now. For those of you that have been here from the beginning, warning the nurses, warning the doctors, this is happening to us. Why aren't you standing up for us? I knew we would be here. I said it in every speech. I said this is going to get really easy the day all the doctors and nurses realize this mandate is coming for them. This is going to get really easy when every adult American citizen realizes, oh my God, you want me to line up like a farm animal too? I was saying, they'll say, oh, we care more about our kids. It's actually not true. It's not true. I started teaching everybody before COVID came along. Stop talking about the childhood vaccine program. Stop talking about the fact that you want your child to have rights. You start warning every adult you're talking to, forget about your kids. Forget about my kids. They're coming after you. They're coming after you, and they're going to forcibly inject every one of you. And I predicted that. Why? Along with many of the smart people standing on this stage, because it was obvious. The pharmaceutical industry slowly became the most powerful lobby in Washington. They started out spending oil and gas 2 to 1. We fight wars in the Middle East for oil and gas. I would say in front of audiences, I would say, what do you think pharma is buying as they buy your next senator, your next assembly member, your next congressman, your next president of the United States? What are they going to get for that? Do you really think it's because they just need to make the money off of that last 2 to 3% of those hippie unvaccinated kids? That's what this is all about? No. It was always about you. 7 billion people forcibly vaccinated with products that they get paid for whether they work or not. Whether you need 1 of them, 2 of them, 3 of them, 4 of them, or now 5. Are you kidding me? How stupid are we? But I'm glad. Luckily, they've gone this far to wake up a lot of people. But here's the truth. Here's the truth. And it's time to start talking about it. I dare anyone in the medical profession to find a vaccine safety efficacy trial for any of the childhood vaccines that are given to our kids that lasted longer or had a better placebo group than this crappy COVID vaccine. You won't find it. And I'm getting really tired of hearing those that have come to our side for the afternoon to say, you know, while they're trying to eject me and I want my job, I'm going to talk out about the COVID vaccine program, but don't be confused. The childhood vaccine program is great. Don't step away from the childhood vaccine program. I'm only here for the COVID vaccine. We heard it happen in Florida. I'm not blaming anybody, and I don't even blame the doctors that are saying that. It's all that they know. It's the only way they know how to research was basically to take what they're told, to listen to the experts they got in university, and whatever they said is gold, and I don't have to look into it. And so every scientist and doctor you see gracing a television or gracing a platform like this telling you now, oh, it's just the COVID vaccine, don't worry about the childhood vaccines. You now just met a doctor that doesn't know how to do a shred of research. And there's some really big doctors and scientists out there, and it's unfortunate. But that's why it's up to us. It's always been up to us. We, the people of the United States of America. We are what makes the difference. We are who built this country. And now we need to step up and we need to rise up. You know, the hepatitis B vaccine, just one that Dr. Artis was talking about, given on the first day of life in every hospital that was tyrannically giving it for decades. That hepatitis B vaccine had a trial that lasted 5 days. COVID vaccine got 9 months. This didn't get 9 months. It didn't get 9 weeks. It didn't even get 9 days. 5 days with no placebo group, with a load of aluminum that is 200 times what was ever approved to be healthy to be fed to a rat. And that's right. The only study we know about with aluminum was given to rats, never to a human being. Our children every day are part of one of the greatest experiments, and we're failing it. We have more babies die on the first day of life in the United States of America than every other industrialized nation combined, in the very hospitals that doctors and nurses are trying to save their jobs in. Why weren't they talking about it then? Why don't they care that they cannot keep a baby alive? We have more children die in the first year of life in the United States of America than every other industrialized nation. We have fewer children make it to the age of 18 than every other industrialized nation. And while this vaccine program has been tyrannically pushed on every child, starting at 11 vaccines prior to taking away liability, skyrocketing to 53 vaccines and 72 doses by the time they're 18, after we took away liability and said you don't have to do any more safety studies because you will never, ever be sued, we went from 12.8% chronic illness, either a neurological disorder or an autoimmune disease, in all of our children, with 11 vaccines, at 54 vaccines and counting. Now more than 54% of America's children have a permanent, lifelong injury, either neurological disorder or autoimmune disease. So I'm sorry to all the politicians, to all of the nurses, and to all the doctors that lost their jobs because they were going to finally be injected with a really shitty product. We've been doing this to kids for far too long, and our nation is failing because of it. Our health is failing because of it. And we are now looking at an autism rate in the United States of America of about 1 in 33 kids. 4 times worse in boys. So somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 in 18 American boys will be diagnosed with autism. Welcome to the earth. Welcome to your original sin, as Brian Artis, I think, was putting it. That you must be injected with viruses and bacteria and heavy metals in order to be allowed to live on this earth. That is insanity. That is a total departure from any connection to God or each other. It is time for Texas to not follow Florida, not follow Ron DeSantis. He's great, but he's only going to get so far. We need to stand in the most powerful nation, in the most powerful state, in the one that states that it believes in liberty and freedom and life and the right to pursue happiness. We need to stand in this Capitol this year and say it ain't just a COVID vaccine. We want to not just end the COVID vaccine mandate, we are going to end all mandates in Texas. And while we're at it, in a state that believes in freedom and the free market, how about we put liability back where it belongs? On the manufacturers, on any doctor, on any nurse that tries to look the other way in the future. Put liability back where it belongs and say, you injure my child, you kill my child, I'm coming for you with all the legal power that exists in the world. And then to also hear, oh yeah, it was amazing what we found out when Twitter actually opened up and told us how much was going on. I was just sitting here, just brainstorming, thinking, you know what? How about in Texas we think about a law, if you take away a scientist or a doctor or a reporter or any free citizen for that matter, their right to free speech on an open platform, if you can't, in the court of law, prove without a shadow of a doubt that what they said was a lie, then you will have your company kicked out of the state of Texas. We don't care if you're YouTube. We don't care if you're Facebook. You will not oppress free speech in the great state of Texas. Like I said, I'm just brainstorming here. We have Texans for Vaccine Choice. They've always been here. They're one of the reasons I came to Texas. Because as I was saying, as I was traveling around, I needed my family safe when I couldn't protect them. I needed to know they were somewhere where they could go to a hospital, where they could use that hospital and not be threatened with medical tyranny and an ongoing medical experiment. And that's why I moved here. That's why so many are moving here. But as we work towards a greater goal, that tyranny and this oppression and what we just saw, just like Rockland County, New York, we thought, oh, that's just the Hasidic Jewish community in New York. And then within just about a year and a half, it was us. And if you think this plan is over, their desire to have vaccine passports and tracking systems, as Yuval Noah Harari says, we as the governments want to watch what's happening under your skin. What are your emotions? What is your blood levels? What is your tensions? They want to own you. They have told you they want to own you. They want you to be renters, subservient slaves. No one in this Capitol can allow one more step in that direction, or they must be removed. We have a lot of work to do. We've been handed a really great gift. And we have really brilliant scientists and doctors and politicians now joining this conversation. But don't let them put their blinders back on. Make them visit the websites for Texans for Vaccine Choice. Make them watch the High Wire. Make them know the truth. Because by the truth we shall live. And by the truth we will stand until we die. This is our mandate. Our mandate is for the United States of America. Our mandate is to never stop our fight for freedom. This is Texas. This is the United States of America. We are endowed by God to be fantastic. Let's never, ever forget that. I love you.
Good luck following that, Michelle.
Really. All right, Michelle, we'd like to hire you, and then we'd like to put you right behind Del Bigtree at our biggest event of the year. Okay. So thank you, everybody, for sacrificing your time to show up here today. And I encourage you to take some time to continue your fellowship with other activists, but also make some office visits while you're here. We are happy to provide you with some educational materials to make these walk-ins fairly cut and paste, so please make your way to see one of our amazing outreach coordinators who can, at the tent, who can help figure out who represents you. This is impossible, sir. We will be breaking down within the next 30 minutes, so please get these materials as soon as possible. We could not do what we do without your support and without the collective power of your voices, your stories, and your prayers. So in 2023, our mantra is going to be, Texas, take the lead. Texas, take the lead. Thank you so much.
No more government overreach. No more fascist bullies disturbing our peace. No more taking of our freedom and our God-given rights.